a series of public health measures to stem the spread of COVID-19. These included Kenya's first ever nationwide curfew since independence, the restriction of movement into and out of most affected counties, the shutdown of learning institutions, a ban on public and social gatherings, restriction on the number of passengers in public service vehicles, among other containment measures. Our health institutions also ramped up their preparedness by training their staff on management of the disease, by creating isolation areas, and by procuring the deployment and deploying the relevant equipment and medication. Despite these commendable efforts, as of this morning, Thursday the 12th of November 2020, we have reported a total of 66,723 confirmed cases of COVID-19 in our country, and sadly, also a total of 1,203 deaths since this tragedy fell upon us, out of which we can say that 23 persons succumbed to the disease over the last 24 hours. Our hearts go out to the families who have lost loved ones to coronavirus. Our thoughts and prayers are with those who are undergoing isolation or treatment with respect to this disease, and we wish them a quick recovery, a quick and complete recovery. Honorable Speakers, honorable members, I would like at this juncture to request all of you to rise on your feet and join me in observing a minute of silence in honor of the memory of 1,289 Kenyans who have succumbed to this deadly disease. I thank you. Honorable Speakers, it is my plea to this House and to all Kenyans that we must not succumb to COVID fatigue. We must not backtrack from our vigilant fight against this pandemic. And on our part, as leaders, our stamina for discipline must not diminish. If the people fall short of giving their best at this time, we, the leaders, have no option but to give our all. As I said recently, we must know the way, go the way, but also show the way. Mr. Speaker, we also once again honor and commend all our frontline health workers across the country, and we shall forever be grateful for their service under tremendous strain and challenging conditions. We also recognize and honor all other first responders, frontline staff, and essential workers who have selflessly gone above and beyond the call of duty and ensured that the Kenya flame continued to burn bright. The COVID-19 pandemic began against the backdrop of a steady economic growth rate of 5.4% in 2019. Our focus in implementing the Kenya Vision 2030 and its medium-term plan, dubbed the Big Four Agenda, has been bearing fruit. As a result, most of the major economic sectors evidenced impressive growth last year, including manufacturing, agriculture, tourism, and financial services. However, when it became apparent that the COVID-19 pandemic threatened to erode the significant economic gains we had made in 2019 and preceding years, on the 25th of March 2020, I did announce state interventions to cushion Kenyans against adverse economic effects of COVID-19 pandemic that warranted the national exchequer to forego taxes amounting to Kenya shillings 176 billion. These tax measures included the temporary suspension of the listing with the credit reference bureaus of any person, micro, small and medium enterprise and corporate entities whose loan accounts had fallen overdue or was in arrears. 2, the immediate reduction of VAT from 16% to 14%. 3, 100% tax relief for all persons earning up to Kenya shillings 24,000. 4, reduction of pay as you earn from 30% to 25%. 5, reduction of corporation tax from 30% to 25%. Indeed, number 6, we did also instruct that all ministries were to pay approximately Kenya shillings 13 billion of verified pending bills so as to improve liquidity in the economy and ensure that businesses remained afloat by enhancing their cash flows, with the private sector also being encouraged to clear all outstanding payments owed within themselves. The Kenya Revenue Authority was directed to expedite the payment of all verified VAT refunds claims amounting to Kenya shillings 10 billion within 3 weeks, or in the alternative, allow the offsetting of withholding VAT in order to improve cash flows for businesses. Number 8, that Kenya shillings 6 billion from the Universal Health Coverage Kitty was to be immediately appropriated strictly towards supporting counties and the recruitment of additional health workers to support in the management of the spread of COVID-19. And number 9, the lowering of the central bank rate from 8.25% to 7.25% so as to prompt commercial banks to lower interest rates applicable to their borrowers and thereby availing much needed affordable credit to micro, small and medium enterprises across the country. Number 10, the lowering of the cash reserve ratio from 5.25% to 4.25% so as to provide additional liquidity of Kenya shillings 35 billion to commercial banks in order to directly support borrowers that were distressed as a result of the economic effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. And number 11, that the Central Bank of Kenya was to provide flexibility to banks with regard to the requirements applicable to loan classification and provision of loans that were performing as of the 2nd of March 2020. In addition, my administration, with the support of Parliament, further initiated an 8-point economic stimulus program amounting to some 56.6 billion Kenya shillings. The major objective of the program was to return the economy to the growth trajectory it was on pre-corona by increasing demand for local goods and services, cushioning vulnerable Kenyans, securing household food security for the poor, and creating employment and incomes. More importantly, the program sought to enhance liquidity in support of the business sector, particularly micro and small enterprises. Accordingly, we set aside a further Kenya shillings 5 billion for the operationalization of the credit guarantee scheme. The recovery program also targets to revamp a broad spectrum of economic sectors by hiring 5,000 health workers and 11,000 interns, even as it supports our teachers as they continue to enhance the delivery of knowledge to our children. It further seeks to create 100,000 job opportunities for the youth, besides implementing a subsidized farm input scheme for vulnerable households, and parts of the resource allocated will be utilized on the ongoing fabrication of 250,000 school desks crafted by local artisans. Mr. Speakers, despite the very difficult times that we have faced as a nation, our people have remained resilient. In the face of tremendous economic challenges and the health crisis we are facing, the majority of us have truly been our brother's keeper. Not only have we stood with our family members and friends going through hard times, we have also acted responsibly by following the laid down public health directives. But fellow Kenyans, we are yet to get out of the woods, and so I urge all Kenyans to keep doing that which is honorable and right. As a nation, we will overcome and thereafter soar to even greater heights. Mr. Speaker, the COVID-19 pandemic has brought to the fore the urgent need for us to upscale our implementation of the universal health coverage pillar of our Big Four, which pillar seeks to eradicate the poverty of dignity and transition our nation into an era where no Kenyan should be forced to sell their land in order to settle their medical bills, or be forced to make a choice between buying much needed medicine and using money to feed their children. An impossible choice. Last year, I informed Parliament that the national government, in partnership with the county governments, was piloting the universal healthcare program in the counties of Nyeri, Machakos, Kisumu, and Isiolo, in preparation for a rollout nationwide. I am pleased today to report that the pilot program for universal healthcare was successfully implemented, and out of it, we have isolated critical learning points, enhancements to my administration's health policy priorities going forward. As we inch closer to the national rollout of the universal health coverage, I also, a fortnight ago in Mombasa, launched the biometric registration for the universal health coverage scheme. Similarly, my administration is instituting far-reaching reforms of NHIF as it perfects the medical insurance scheme. Honourable Members of Parliament, it is notable too that there has been a phenomenal increase in mental illness across the country and indeed around the world, which has caused serious national distress and anguish in our families. As a government that cares, I have established an office in the Ministry of Health with the full responsibility of spearheading our national response to this latest disruption to our social order and our nation's wellness. To To institutionalize this initiative, I have issued an executive order establishing an ultra-modern national mental health hospital and also elevated Mathare National Teaching Referral Hospital as a semi-autonomous specialized hospital, and I shall be looking to this House to support in the funding of this facility. The East Africa's premier mental health facility will be established to offer training, research in psychiatry, specialized psychiatric services, forensic psychiatric services, child and adolescent mental services, and substance abuse related and addictive disorders treatment and rehabilitation services. Challenges to our public health notwithstanding, I am confident that in partnership with the county governments, we are on course to realize the aspirations that we have of universal health coverage for all. Honorable members, a nation's future is its children. As custodians of and trustees for future generations, it is our duty to protect, nurture, and mold our young children into responsible citizens. Our children embody the only true guarantee of continuity of this project that we call Kenya. To this end, my administration continues to institute far-reaching reforms within our education sector. And in January last year, we successfully completed the rollout of the competency-based curriculum, an exercise which, while notwithstanding its challenges, is one that has nevertheless been fully embraced by all stakeholders in the education sector. As at the end of 2019 calendar year, we had been able to achieve a textbook to pupil ratio of 1:1 for grades 1 to 3. I assure this distinguished sitting that the journey to replace the 844 system with a new fit-for-purpose curricula is well underway, and refinements are being undertaken in the course of implementation. Honorable members, as a parent and also as a grandparent, I share in the pain and frustration of most parents in having our children home for nearly an entire year. However, as a responsible government, we put the health and safety of the children as the paramount consideration. The gradual and phased reopening of schools that began with the examination classes is being carefully monitored at all levels so as to ensure that our young Kenyans are safe and secure as they continue preparing for their national examinations. The Ministry of Education will, within 14 days of the date hereof, announce the 2021 academic calendar, with all other classes expected to resume learning in January of 2021. Still on the subject of our basic education, I made a commitment to the nation during my last State of the Nation address that no child should be left behind, meaning that no child be denied their right to access education. I am pleased to report to this House that for the second year we have been able to achieve a transition rate of 100% from primary to secondary schools. And even as we prepare to reopen schools I once again reiterate that no child will be left behind, even those who unfortunately have transitioned into being young parents. Honorable Speaker, we must say that in the face of these undoubtedly impressive gains, we must guard against resting on our laurels. The next frontier in the quest to providing education for all is to improve our education in Kenya by enhancing quality of education, both in terms of physical structure as well as content. It is evident that our public day and boarding secondary school infrastructure is overstretched. As a result, our students are suffering congestion in both classes and dormitories. These challenges, however real, must not stop us from pursuing what we know to be the right thing for our children. Rather, they should act as motivation for us to work even harder. Through a combination of interventions, both policy and financial, involving the Ministry of Education, county governments, and members of the National Assembly, through the National Government Constituency Development Fund, we shall have the necessary resources to address the infrastructure gap to our education sector conclusively within the next 24 months. In this regard, I therefore appeal to members of the National Assembly that the use of funds under your oversight should be used primarily to respond to the immediate and short-term needs of our learners. Currently, there is an urgent need for construction and equipping of more dormitories, classes, and other amenities to further facilitate ease of learning for our children. Indeed, conscious of the fact that significant financial resources will be deployed towards the construction of at least 12,500 new classrooms and related school facilities. And in that regard, the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Transport, Infrastructure, Housing and Urban Development have been instructed that by the 1st of December 2020 to issue a new set of building guidelines for school infrastructure that allows the use of appropriate and cost-effective building technologies suited to the varied geographies of our nation. The intervention of these guidelines will achieve transparent